For the very first time in my entire life, this month I watched the Matrix trilogy in 4K on HBO Max in preparation for the Matrix Resurrections. And what I can say about the Matrix trilogy, in their time, they basically revolutionized how cinema is made in the slow motion, visual effects, other certain artistries. And my personal opinion on the Matrix trilogy is that of the Minority Group, where the first Matrix was okay, it was decent, wasn't bad. The Matrix Reload was a lot better, and the Matrix Revolutions, I think everybody in this world can agree, sucks. It's boring. The first 25, 30 minutes of the Matrix Revolutions was there's dialogue scenes and subway stations. Absolutely phenomenal. But after that, whenever the war gets going, Matrix Revolution just bombs for the next hour, 40 minutes. Now, with that being said, the first Matrix did a lot for cinema. I will agree with that, and I understand when people bring that up. But the Matrix Reloaded, the second one in the trilogy, I firmly and personally believe it did a lot more for cinema, especially that one action sequence that lasts, I believe, like 10 minutes, where it's a whole bunch of the same actor ganging up on Keanu Reeves, who plays as Neo, and they just go at it, basically in a dogfight. And it's 10 minutes of excellently choreographed fight sequences, kind of like John Wick, but, unrealistic, but with exceptional special effects. And that's the thing, too. The thing I love about The Matrix, all in all, overall, is Keanu Reeves. He could be a really bad actor at times. Like, a really bad actor. He's nowhere near of the greats for acting like Leo DiCaprio. But Keanu Reeves is such a genuinely decent and great person that I just love this guy. It's kind of like Dave Grohl as a musician. Yeah, he's a stupid brain dead leftist, but I will always respect and appreciate how he brought himself up, making his own music, becoming a musician all on his own, never a single lesson. And yeah, he's an average drummer, he's a better guitarist, better singer, but Dave Grohl, as brain dead of a personality in politics as he is superb as a musician. And that's why I will always respect him. Same with Keanu Reeves. I'm not saying Keanu Reeves is brain dead. I don't know for a fact if he is. I mean, Keanu Reeves is usually extremely private with his personal life, other than going out and basically just giving cheers to other people. That's how you know he's a genuinely decent, honest, great person. He doesn't just go out there boasting himself or boasting his films or even games that he stars in now. He's just out there promoting goodwill and charity and decency. And that's what I love about the Matrix trilogy and all of the Matrix. It's just that they always bring in Keanu Reeves. He's the star, the personality of the entire thing. So, for the trilogy, I would say The Matrix 1, unfortunately, everybody will hate me for this. The Matrix 1, I would give a 7. The Matrix Reloaded, always bouncing between an 8 and a 9. I would say it's an 8.5. The Matrix Revolution is either a 4 or 5. I'm not going to give 1 or even half it because I, alongside everybody else, we do not care about the Matrix Revolution, the third one in the trilogy. Yes, it ended the story, but it just, so goddamn boring. So now we get the Matrix Resurrections, literally around 20 years later. And the Matrix trilogy was written and directed by the Wachowski brothers. And now the Matrix Resurrections was resurrected by one of them, who they both are now actually transgenders. And Matrix Resurrections was co-written and directed by Lana Wachowski. And before I get into this actual official review, I must say, guy or girl, guy dressed like girl, guy living like a girl, vice versa, girl as guy, I don't care. Live your life and I will treat you with kindness and decency. Just want to throw that out there. It has absolutely nothing to do with you as a person. This is just my critique of an art. So The Matrix Resurrections is about roughly 2 hours and 16 minutes, about the equivalent of The Matrix Reloaded. And it says it's 2 hours and 27 minutes, and that's wrong. There's like 11 minutes of credits with just an unnecessary, really stupid post-credit scene. It wasn't worth just waiting or even fast-forwarding. It's just not even worth seeing. But The Matrix Resurrections, what I have to say about that is basically it is a woke version of The Matrix 1. So basically The Matrix Resurrection is the same story with twists of new age technology and a new inner story that's basically formulated around the exact same formula of the first Matrix, combined with some woke elements, i.e. nitpick, but like the side-swiped blue hair. The minute I saw that, I knew there were going to be some woke things in this, and I don't agree with them, but I can honestly say they're not completely in your face all the time in this film, unlike Candyman. But it still deters from the art itself. And when I researched after watching the Matrix trilogy and finding out that the Wachowski brothers are now the Wachowski sisters, that irked me a little bit, because not because of them personally, it's because I know that most times that there are these kind of things that happen, transgenderism or Black Lives Matter, police brutality, all of that stuff, when a person in real life is addicted to their identity, it tends to soak into their art. And that is where I draw the line. Art is supposed to be subjective to a fault. I prefer objectivity. And like an objective way of directing, what I would say is like the likes of Denis Villeneuve, like Prisoners, Dune, the new Dune, that kind of direction. The Matrix Resurrections tries everything that they can to throw at you with woke elements. Everything that they did in The Matrix 1 is in The Matrix Resurrections with a spin, and not for the better. It always has a woke ideology spun into it. And that's what I don't like about it. Now, the storytelling of The Matrix Resurrections, it's kind of funny that this released now, because this past weekend I watched Spider-Man No Way Home, and that was a phenomenal way to bring back the past and use it for present storylines. The Matrix Resurrections is the exact opposite. They poorly handled bringing the past in. They couldn't stay away from the past. They literally used everything that was great in the past, and they just beefed it up and glorified the hell out of it. And they used that as every single plot device in The Matrix Resurrections. Like, the original film itself, outside of all of the callbacks and flashbacks, take away all of the flashbacks, take away all of the woke elements, you could potentially have a really solid, really good, really well-made film. The visuals are always outstanding, and particularly in Matrix Resurrections. I would say the visuals are at least a 9 out of 10. The acting is mostly 7, 8 out of 10. Like I said, Keanu Reeves isn't the greatest actor. There are some comedic parts in this, some comedic lines. For example, they do bring in a joke about Neo playing Superman whenever they start getting cornered, and they look at Neo, Keanu Reeves, and they say, I don't suppose you can still fly. And he gets ready, he poses, and he goes to fly, and you think it's going to happen, and he just jumps in the air. And he caps it off with, yeah, that's not going to happen. Perfect. Perfect delivery in a very funny scene. I didn't really find much else humor in The Matrix Resurrections. This film tries desperately to take itself so seriously. Now, with that being said, they do have a lot of meta things in this, such as like the flashbacks, the callbacks. I do appreciate that the new story they brought in is basically a meta, and I mean, it's like a metaphor for the whole first Matrix they put into this new story as a video game, which is kind of funny considering in real life, after the Matrix films, they actually made video games based around the Matrix films. So I did find that to be a pretty good meta in this film. The story, at least. The writing and just the film itself, not terrible, but it doesn't really grip you the way that the first and second films do. Really, the only flaw that I noticed in The Matrix Reloaded was the very uneven tone, where the talking scenes were serious, like the story scenes were serious, the action scenes were kind of just like, I don't know, it felt like a comedic element to it. Like, they'd be talking and they'd be saying, I'm gonna kill you. But then you'd start hearing, wah! And it was funny at first, but then they constantly did it in The Matrix Reloaded. In The Matrix Resurrections, the tone is very consistent. That's one thing I can say that is made very well about The Matrix Resurrections, which I guess you could consider that to be in the editing job. The tone is consistent. The pacing is a little below the bar as far as comparing to the tone, because there are some times where this film does kind of drag and the pacing's just not all there. I think that's due in part that they were trying to give some personality to certain characters, and it just felt unnecessary and just drawn out just a little bit. Now, the new Oracle, being Jada Pinkett Smith in a whole shit ton of makeup, didn't work at all. The original Oracle worked very well because it was practical effects, and they didn't just throw her in a vat of makeup. The Oracle in Matrix Resurrections just looks like a mud monster, honestly. No offense to Jada Pinkett Smith, but the makeup designers, they should be fired. They should never, ever have a job after this film. They did a god-awful job on Jada Pinkett Smith and playing her character in this. So, overall for me, to sum it all up, this was a really good film that was bogged down immensely by bad, extreme repetition of flashbacks and callbacks and references and nodes, that to the point this film ended up getting consumed by its own legacy. Plus add in all of the minor woke elements that just didn't feel fitting for the world. Like, you had Morpheus, who at least half of the time wasn't dressed up in a black suit, was dressed up in a very flamboyant, I think it was a gold suit, and it didn't match the tone of the films and the legacy of it. And, you know, you also have always, they did this in the Devil May Cry 5 game, but I gave that a pass. But in this, I can't. You always have that minority nerd character with the cliche glasses, the cliche scarf, and oh, look, laptop, because minority nerd. And they always do that. Every time that I see some type of woke ideologist, you know that there's going to be a minority nerd somewhere around there. And it's cliche at this point. I don't have a problem with it, but it's cliche. It's overdone. That's really all I have to ramble on about The Matrix Resurrections. I went in with an extremely open mind. But overall, at the end of the day, it could have been a really good film, but it was bogged down by inconsistent pacing, kind of bad writing, just because they relied so heavily on callbacks. The acting was passable. Like I said, Keanu Reeves is a star, but he's not really a star in things. I mean, everybody did their job at the very least in this film, just not really the filmmakers. The visual effects, outstanding. Like I said, at least a 9 out of 10. There were just a small couple of scenes that I thought looked ugly. And so for me, The Matrix Resurrections is a very solid 6 out of 10. It's not terrible. It's not the great of the greats. It's passable with some annoyance in it. Thank you.